Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are diving straight into the molecular world to talk about hydrocarbons. Now you probably know they're the absolute backbone of organic chemistry, but what's really wild is just how ubiquitous they are. I mean, they are literally everywhere. We're talking about the hidden architecture in the fuels that keep our cities running, the plastics in your hands right now, the medicines in your cabinet, and even the perfumes you spray on in the morning. By the end of this Explainer, you are going to look at the physical world around you in a completely different way. Here is a quick look at our agenda. 1. Meet the chemistry king. 2. The hydrocarbon family tree. 3. Naming and shaping molecules. 4. Powering the real world. And 5. The environmental cost. Let's get right into it. So to kick things off, consider this riddle. What exactly links the gas you put in your car to the plastic case on your phone? The answer is exactly what we're unpacking today. Hydrocarbons are that hidden, foundational link that literally structures and powers our daily lives. Section 1. Meet the chemistry king. The basic definition here is beautifully simple. A hydrocarbon is simply an organic compound made up of just two elements, carbon atoms and hydrogen atoms. That's the whole shebang. But don't let that simplicity fool you. These two elements combine in virtually endless ways to form the absolute bedrock of organic chemistry. So why do we call carbon the king of organic chemistry? Well, it essentially has three distinct superpowers. First up is tetravalency. Carbon has a valency of 4, which just means it can form 4 separate covalent bonds all at once. Methane, or CH4, is a perfect example of this. Second is catenation. This is carbon's amazing ability to hold hands, so to speak, linking up with other carbon atoms to form these massive chains, complex branches, or even rings. And the third superpower? Multiple bonds. Carbon doesn't just settle for single bonds. It can form double and even triple bonds. Put those three powers together, and carbon has this unmatched ability to build the incredibly diverse molecular universe we live in. Moving right along to Section 2, the hydrocarbon family tree. Because carbon has so many structural options, we have to organize things. The first major split in our family tree comes down to saturation. On one side, we have saturated hydrocarbons. The rule of thumb here is that they contain only single bonds. Basically, their carbon bonds are completely saturated or maxed out with hydrogen. On the other side, we have unsaturated hydrocarbons. These guys contain at least one double or triple bond somewhere in their structure. Now, those two broad categories break down into 3 core families: alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. And there's a really neat mathematical progression here. Alkanes, like methane, are saturated with single bonds, so their formula is CnH2n plus 2. Step it up to alkenes. These are unsaturated with double bonds. The formula drops 2 hydrogens, giving us CnH2n. A good example is ethene. Finally, you have alkynes. These are unsaturated with triple bonds, so they drop 2 more hydrogens, leaving us with CnH2n-2, like ethene. The math shifts perfectly based on how many bonds those carbon atoms are sharing. To help keep track of how these compounds actually behave in the real world, I love this little memory trick. Single bond means alkane is calm. Because alkanes are completely saturated with single bonds, they are highly stable. They generally have very steady, predictable chemical properties. They'll undergo combustion, burning as a fuel, or halogenation, like when methane reacts with chlorine if you expose it to sunlight. Basically, they're the calm, dependable heavy lifters of the chemical world. Contrast that calm behavior with our next trick. Double bond makes alkene active. Triple bond gives strongest reactivity. Unsaturated hydrocarbons contain what are known as weak pi bonds, and those weak bonds make them incredibly eager to react. They're so active, in fact, that they will aggressively strip the color right out of chemical tests. For example, they'll rapidly turn purple Bayer solution completely colorless. Those double and triple bonds make them super active and highly prone to rapid addition reactions. Okay, stepping away from those open chains for a second, let's talk about aromatic hydrocarbons. These are fundamentally different. They feature closed, cyclic structures with alternating double bonds. Now, historically, they got the name aromatic because they often have this distinct, pleasant, sweet smell. Though, just a quick aside, you absolutely do not want to go around sniffing them in a lab today. The absolute classic textbook example here is benzene, which is a flat, planar, cyclic structure with the formula C6H6. And that brings us to our final memory trick for the family tree. Ring of stability is benzene reality. Now, because benzene has alternating double bonds, you'd probably expect it to be highly reactive, right? But actually, that unique ring structure makes benzene surprisingly stable. Instead of breaking apart, it prefers specific substitution reactions, things like nitration, halogenation, sulfonation, or Friedel-Crafts reactions, where it just politely swaps out an atom, but the main ring itself stays perfectly intact. Let's dive into Section 3, naming and shaping molecules. So, with literally millions of possible carbon combinations out there, it's a bit of a jungle. We desperately need a universal language. Otherwise, it's total chaos. Enter the IUPAC naming system. Think of it as a brilliant 4-step logical blueprint. Step 1, find the longest continuous carbon chain. Step 2, identify the bond type. This gives us our suffix. So single bonds get ane, double gets ene, and triple gets yne. Step 3, number the carbon atoms so you can map out precise locations. And step 4, identify any substituents, which are basically just the branches hanging off that main chain. It is a flawless system for identifying every single molecule. But here is a fascinating curveball. What happens when two molecules have the exact same chemical ingredients, but a totally different physical shape? That phenomenon is called isomerism. We look at 3 main types here. Chain isomerism is a structural change in the skeleton itself, like having a straight line versus a branched shape. Think N-butane versus isobutane. Then there's position isomerism, which is when the double or triple bond simply shifts to a different spot along the chain. And lastly, geometrical isomerism. This happens because a double bond actually restricts rotation, which rigidly locks the molecule into specific spatial arrangements known as cis or trans. Same exact ingredients, entirely different structural architecture. All right, Section 4, powering the real world. Let's pull this out of the theoretical chemistry lab and connect it directly to your everyday life. Methane, often referred to as natural gas or marsh gas, is widely used as a primary fuel and in manufacturing hydrogen. Then there's ethine, which you might know as acetylene. This stuff burns so intensely that we use it for welding and cutting through solid metal. Then, of course, we have petroleum. This is the absolute giant of the transportation industry. It gets separated down into LPG for cooking, petrol for your cars, kerosene, and diesel. And we can't forget the destructive distillation of coal, which gives us heavy industrial staples like coke, coal tar, and coal gas. It's incredible to think that these microscopic molecules are doing the massive heavy lifting of modern civilization. But it isn't just about burning things for fuel. There's another absolutely crucial industrial process we rely on called polymerization. This is where tiny molecules, known as monomers, like the ethene gas we talked about earlier, chemically link up to form massively large polymer chains. That ethene literally transforms into polythene. Simply put, this is the exact chemical process that produces the solid plastics and synthetic fibers that we handle in our homes every single day. Finally, Section 5, the environmental cost. Now, extracting and utilizing all these powerful molecules obviously doesn't happen in a vacuum. When we combust these fuels on a massive global scale, the data points to some highly specific environmental consequences. According to the sources, these physical reactions lead to widespread air pollution from particulates, the enhancement of global warming through massive carbon dioxide release, the formation of dense urban smog, and the creation of acid rain. These are the direct physical results of the sheer scale of combustion happening globally right now. Because of those physical consequences, scientists and engineers are currently racing to develop eco-friendly alternatives, often called green fuels. The major areas of focus right now include biogas, which is formed from decaying organic matter, biofuels derived directly from agriculture, and hydrogen fuel. Hydrogen is particularly interesting because it's designed to provide massive amounts of energy while emitting absolutely nothing but pure water vapor. These options really represent the next generation of global energy. So that leaves us with a pretty massive question. We started out today by seeing how hydrocarbons act as the hidden foundation of modern civilization, linking your car to your phone. But as we look ahead, how will green fuels reshape that deep hydrocarbon dependency? As we continue to master the chemistry of tomorrow, how exactly is our family tree of molecules going to evolve? It's an absolutely fascinating scientific frontier. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.